Logan, happy Aquarius season. The sun moved into the sign of the water bearer today, and as you may know, Pluto has slowly been moving through the early degrees of Aquarius, meaning that a boatload of planets are about to meet up with the Lord of the Underworld in the coming days. So we have a very deep, intense Plutonian week ahead of us. Let's get into it. We're starting off the week wildly busy in the stars today, Monday, January 19th, with 6 notable transits. First of all, the Sun, Mars, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune are all playing nice with each other. How sweet. The Sun formed a sextile to Neptune earlier today from the tail end of Capricorn to Pisces, which stimulates boundless compassion, creative vision, and spiritual connection. Not a bad way to start off the week. Now, any planet passing into Aquarius will first form this sextile aspect with Saturn and then Neptune. We saw some of that last week as well. It's like those two planets are guarding one side of the Capricorn-Aquarius cusp with Pluto over on the other side. And then, my friends, the Sun moved into Aquarius, the fixed air sign of the water bearer. And that means that we're in a season of deprogramming, of deconditioning the toxic bullshit that we've been taught by the overculture. This is a time of discovering our genuine, authentic selves beneath that conditioning, the flavor of unique genius that each one of us carries and can contribute to the collective. This is a time of innovation and invention, of looking toward the future, of zooming out to consider community, society, humanity, and how we can progress in the best possible way together. Folks, remember that Aquarius is the sign of rebellion and revolution, of finally rising up and saying that we've had enough of this fascist nonsense and acting on it. Now, we're really feeling the start of Aquarius season today with Venus conjunct Pluto at 3 degrees of Aquarius. And I want to compare this very Plutonian week to the last week or two that have a lot of Chiron transits that I told you about. Chiron represents chronic issues, painful wounds that we're well aware of, even though we might get used to them or kind of tune them out sometimes. Pluto also has to do with wounds and pain, but this is about repression. On a personal level, Pluto can be about repressed memories, deeply hidden internal truths or traumas, anything that gets pushed down into our internal underworld, which is why Pluto is so closely associated with shadow work. And folks, this week is an excellent time for that sort of thing. Pluto is a planet of fear and the courage to face those fears. This is about the pain that we bury inside ourselves and all the energy that it takes to lock it away. Because Pluto, as the planet of, among other things, death, has to do with our survival mechanisms and our coping mechanisms. So repression is a valid coping mechanism that we might need to use to survive, that we pick up through the course of our lives. But when we're able to confront that repressed pain, to tap into that energy and potential and to alchemize it, we turn it into power. So in a nutshell, Pluto forces us through the discomfort of claiming our power. But since that process is uncomfortable, many people choose to avoid it and stay disempowered. Pluto is about those deepest, darkest, scariest parts of life and death that we tend to avoid or run from. But folks, we can't escape Pluto this week. On a societal level, Pluto is also about power, repression, manipulation, lies, secrets, deep truths getting exposed. And so we have an opportunity here to connect our deep personal pain to larger systemic issues. The problems we face in our lives, loneliness, poverty, disenfranchisement, to name a few, are directly connected to the larger societal systems and structures that we're forced to live within, the true workings of which are often hidden from view. Very Plutonian, right? But understanding this can empower us, going from isolation to connection, from disempowerment to people power, especially in the sign of Aquarius. As you've probably noticed, Pluto in Aquarius over the last 2-3 years or so has already been bringing us terrifying technological and societal developments. Everything from Gen AI centers ruining the environment in entire fucking towns, to the government increasingly investing in a surveillance state and closely aligning with disgustingly unethical tech companies. So this is a week to consider your relationship to technology, to generative AI if you're even using it, and to make progress on divesting from the worst institutions and corporations out there. You probably know what I'm referring to, and if you don't, our lovely Logan has given us lots of content about that you can go back and check out. Okay, let's go back to Venus conjunct Pluto earlier today. This transit can be very confronting and dysregulating. It can expose deep truths in our relationships and in our resources. We're really urged here to think about how we spend our money and how we can show up with more radical honesty and empowerment in our relationships, which are the foundation of the revolution, right? And to think about how we can use our creative voices to speak truth to power in a radical way. Meanwhile, we have this cool configuration with Saturn at 27 degrees of Pisces, forming a sextile to Uranus at 27 degrees of Taurus, and then Mars is at 27 degrees of Capricorn, forming a trine to Uranus and a sextile to Saturn. So they're all connected in this flowing, stimulating way. And I want to highlight Uranus here because it's the ruling planet of Aquarius. Fancy that. As the lord of earthquakes and lightning bolts, Uranus has a tendency to shake shit up, to bring sudden shocking developments. And I think that these transits can help us to harness that revolutionary energy of Uranus with the brave action of Mars and the focused self-discipline of Saturn. Okay, let's move on here to Tuesday, January 20th. That morning, we'll have Mercury at the end of the sign of Capricorn, making that sextile to Neptune at the very end of Pisces. And I just want to foreshadow here for you that Neptune has been at the end of Pisces for a long time, but it's actually about to move out of that sign and into Aries next Monday, the 26th, completing a 165-year lap around the zodiac, which is a huge fucking deal. And then Neptune will be followed by Saturn next month, moving into Aries, and those two planets will finally make an exact conjunction on February 20th, which is a massive event that astrologers have been anticipating for years. So we'll talk more about that in future reports, but start girding your loins now. Anyway, with Mercury sextile to Neptune here, we're stimulated to perceive beyond the limits of ordinary reality, to think creatively and communicate compassionately. Neptune helps us to boundlessly dream and envision that better future world that we're building together. So important. But also, with this planet of empathy and interconnectedness, we encounter the grief of tapping into the emotional suffering of the collective, which is something that we need to feel and process. Then, in short order, Mercury will move into Aquarius, turning our thoughts and words toward authenticity, innovation, humanitarianism, and, of course, revolution. And later that evening, the moon will move from Aquarius into dreamy Neptune-ruled Pisces. All right, then on the morning of Wednesday, January 21st, the Sun and Mercury will be conjunct here at 1.5 degrees of Aquarius, underscoring those mercurial themes of perception, thought, communication, local community. And then on Thursday, the 22nd, Mercury will finally meet up with Pluto at 3.5 degrees of Aquarius. This gives us the chance to really go mentally deep in uncovering and communicating the truth and power that Pluto represents. Then Mars will sextile Neptune from the very end of Capricorn, linking our courage and drive to collective compassion, fittingly. And having passed through that Neptune gate, it's now warrior planet Mars' turn to cross into Aquarius on Friday, January 23rd. Having prepared our minds, our hearts, our souls, we now bring our courage and our action to this revolutionary party. And on that same day, the Sun will be conjunct Pluto in Aquarius, illuminating the underworld, exposing hidden truths, directing our energy toward radical honesty and uncovering deep potential and power. Fittingly, the Moon will move into brave, bold Aries on Friday morning as well. Whew, after a super intense week, we will have a quiet, recuperative weekend. There's no real news here on Saturday, January 24th, and the only thing to report on Sunday, the 25th, is the moon moving over into calm, steady Taurus. So we'll get a chance to catch our breath as we move deeper into these powerfully revolutionary times. I hope we make the most of it. That's it for this week's astrological weather report. I'm Alice Pope. Logan, back to you.